Hi everyone, and glad you could join us again for TOOP TV. Well, everyone needs a little bit of R&R every now and again, and today's show is all about living the relaxed lifestyle. Looking for a sea change? Find out more about living in Glenelg with our suburb insiders. And in SA's finest, take a look through this gorgeous country property in Piccadilly and experience the luxury in Aldinga. And of course, we're live and interactive. We will be answering your real estate questions at the end of the show. Well, certainly a crazy time in the market, and we're certainly sure that pricing your property to go on the market is absolutely at an all-time level of importance. Today on the show, we've got a segment on improving your backyard's presentation, but now on our inside story, why the country market is booming.
It turns out the grass is actually greener on the other side, as South Australia's rural property market is booming. According to Valuer General figures, in the 12 months to March, house prices have increased by 19% in Port Augusta, 16% in Millicent, 8% in Mount Gambier and 5% in Victor Harbor. This is a notably large contrast compared to Adelaide's median price, which has risen just over 1% in the same amount of time. The reason for this rise in country house prices has been attributed to the numerous home buyers looking for a change in lifestyle in an affordable location.
People are sick of all the clutter of the city and they just want to be self-sufficient.
But I can understand why they'd want to come up here. It's absolutely beautiful.
I think, people like to get out from the big city and come up into... I mean, this is only, 30 minutes out of the CBD, so it's great.
In particular, retirees are seeking a tree change by snapping up some cheap property along the Fleurieu Peninsula and in Mount Gambier. Rising rents and government cuts to first homeowner grants have also forced potential first home buyers to seek cheaper country homes. And this trend in buying rural properties looks likely to continue, with more baby boomers retiring and the number of first homeowner grants falling.
Well, an interesting story there. Maybe a little bit of a topic for debate over the last couple of months in terms of where those prices are going at the moment. But joining me in the studio at the moment is Robin Matters. Robin, good to have you in.
Thank you.
Robin is the Managing Director of Merck Property and also the current President of the Adelaide Benevolent Strangers Friend Society, or the Adelaide Benevolent Society.
Correct.
Good to have you in. Robin, perhaps just to get things started, perhaps a little bit of a background yourself, 30 years in real estate, how it all started and so forth.
Yeah, 30 plus now. A fourth generation in real estate, and I was never going to go into real estate. My father warned me against it. I was driving around, doing a trip around to Australia, going to Perth, Darwin to rebuild it after the cyclone, and stopped in Perth. It was $21.50 to get a licence, and it was a year's course back here in Adelaide. And I thought, I need a bit of pocket money, I'll have a go. And thoroughly enjoyed it, much to my father's pleasure, ultimately, and came back and went into the family firm for a while.
Mm-hmm. And what was the family firm's?
Back then was Matters & Co.
Yep. And then from there, progression?
There we started another firm which is now known as Mortgagees, and I left that about 15 years ago and start what I do now.
And you mentioned that there was a sort of a moment in time that prompted you?
Yes, I was working on a mortgagee sale up at Banksia Park, and I was really not terribly comfortable with the way the process was being run. So I sat down and wrote a business plan on how I thought it should work, and it was how everyone had to sing from the same hymn sheet, essentially. And from that, I was lucky to pick up Westpac's mortgagee portfolio around Australia and manage that for them. And it was that time I had to decide, well, I wasn't going to actively sell as an agent anymore, and started this firm that now operates.
Excellent. So Merck Property is an all-encompassing vendor, I guess, for Mortgagee Sales.
Correct.
Perhaps the process from start to finish from your point of view?
Well, I can't give away all the trade secrets, but essentially we stand in the shoes of the vendor, and our skill sets are really knowing how to present a property. Most people will hear what an agent says and unfortunately not necessarily always believe them. And we probably confirm a lot of those beliefs, and we also help them make the decision that they have to make. And with the mortgagee sales, it's essentially how do we sell it, what method, auction, private treaty, tender, what works we should do to it without spending too much money that we risk more money.
Yep.
And how time is obviously a factor for mortgagee sales. and in the negotiations,
Yep.
getting the right money for the property and
Maximising.
helping, and knowing the traits of negotiation, which we can then instill into the agent acting on our behalf to ensure that the purchaser parts with as much as we can get from them.
Yeah, and I guess in turn that helps out the mortgagee who's in default.
Mortgagor.
Mortgagor. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, it's a mortgage.
They're our major focus.
Yes.
We have our first responsibility is to them, and then obviously to the lender and other parties that may be involved, such as mortgage insurers. Obviously, there's times when a mortgagor may get a little emotional and do things outside the norm, and we have to take that into account. But yeah, we're there to try and maximise the return for the bank and the mortgagor.
Yeah, excellent. We always interested, of course, in trends that might be emerging at the current moment in terms of are there more mortgagee sales coming into the market at the moment, or?
If you measure it on the last couple of years, yes, but if you go back over a decade or so, I don't believe so. The stats that we're dealing with aren't anything like they were back in the 90s.
Right.
Things have changed a lot since then. We've had an ombudsman come in. Firstly, we had the Wallace inquiry, which was something that prompted me to do what I do. Then the ombudsman set themselves up. So the banks have moved into being a very customer-centric business, and they're not in the business of owning property or kicking people out of their homes. And so to that end, I think the numbers are a lot less, but on the last few years, and certainly in South Australia in the last year, there's an upward trend.
What about state by state? Are there any particular areas that we should take note of or be aware of?
New South Wales certainly was the one in 2005, and we read all about mortgagee sales then and the pressure on prices. In 1998, 50% of our work came out of Queensland. Today, our percentage in New South Wales is very low, as is Victoria, and I can't believe Victoria can continue the way they are. And Queensland's certainly on the way up. It was on the way up before Yassi and the floods. They haven't helped them at all, and there is very much a two-tier economy in Perth. If you went down to Mandurah, there's many a sale, but around Peppermint Grove and Mosman and Dalkeith, things are very rosy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, and I mean, interesting to look at our market here in Adelaide and note that the top end market seems to be bubbling along quite nicely as well. So there's clearly money around the place, but
we haven't seen anything in Adelaide of any note except maybe a few student accommodation issues. But,
yes.
Mount Gambier has probably been a little busier than we would like it to be.
Right.
But it's, once again, the mortgage belts.
Yeah. And I guess typically, how long before you're seeing activity in a particular sale?
When would I be involved?
Yes.
Not before 9 months, normally.
No. So
unless
it's a
someone,
long time, isn't it?
excuse me, unless someone walks in and says, here are the keys.
Okay. Can we slip across and talk just quickly about the Benevolent Society?
We may.
And I guess we might need to extend the conversation into the show a little bit later on. But the Benevolent Society started in 1849.
Correct.
Over
Adelaide's oldest charity, the existing charity, and I believe it would be Australia's apart from the Sydney Benevolent Society, or the Benevolent Society of New South Wales. Our charter basically says we care for the indigent, which translated means the needy.
Yes.
And the Society's board over the many decades has focused on accommodation.
Right.
So we own quite a bit of real estate, and we look after those that can't afford to live in mainstream real estate. So we're not looking after the homeless. It's an area we believe that's undercatered for. So it's those that need rent assistance. So we still charge them rent,
yes,
but less than a market rent.
Right. And they can find subsidies elsewhere through the government.
Well, even if they can't, we charge them what they can afford, which is fair and equitable.
Right. Okay. And you own property, obviously,
yes,
across South Australia.
Mainly metropolitan,
yep,
but would look where the needs exist. Previously, we focused a lot more on the elderly because the rental system's not very nice for the elderly and having to move every 18 months because your landlord keeps selling or something is a difficulty. So for them it's more about tenure rather than how good the accommodation is. So know that they can live there for 15 years and there's
some security.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The others, we're looking more about transitioning people from maybe they've had a rough marriage and they've got 3 or 4 kids. We've got a house at the moment, we've got some bloke who's got 5 young children. And he just needs a helping hand he can't work.
Right.
At this stage he can't work until because he needs to look after his children.
Of course, yeah.
So when he can get to the stage where the children are all at school and he can get a job, and then hopefully we can help him buy a house one day with a shared equity model we're working on.
Okay. Well, we might touch on that in a few moments' time, and also I'd like to talk about what developments are on the drawing board as well, and maybe how people can help.
Okay.
So stick with us for a few moments and we'll be back. At the moment we're going to go and have a look at some of SA's finest homes.